there is a cultural sustainability in this guitar. And I think if we will meet together in 20 or 30 years, this guitar will be still an icon.
Today's episode of Life with Strings Attached was filmed on location in the workshop of Ulrich Teuffel in southern Germany. Our first episode to feature 2 guests. Our first guest is Ulrich Teuffel. Teuffel has been building electric guitars since 1988. He's a trained automotive mechanic and studied industrial design in the 1990s. His models Birdfish, Tesla, Niwa, and Antonio are radically independent, but always follow a leitmotif. They can now be found in museums and collections, as well as in the hands of musicians such as David Torn, Kirk Hammett, Billy Gibbons, Henry Kaiser, Ludwig Göransson, and Hans Zimmer. For many of today's guitar makers, Teuffel's work exists on its own plane, elevated to a level that very few will ever achieve. Our second guest is Robin Stummvoll. Stummvoll is an industrial designer, guitar maker, and founder of Verso guitars originating from Ulm, Germany. After achieving a degree in graphic design and working within the field for a few years, Stummvoll decided that then he would study industrial design, which ultimately resulted in his unusual Cosmo guitar, for which he has become well known for in a relatively short period of time. Somewhat of an overnight success, one might say. His work has been featured in numerous design, technology, and guitar magazines, including Wired, Wallpaper, and Guitar.com. He says that his invitation to participate in the NAMM Show's Boutique Guitar Showcase marked an important step in his journey, and that since then he's collaborated with Kate Bush, Henry Kaiser, and Maroon 5. In my conversations with Robin Stummvoll, it came to my attention that he was influenced by and featured Ulrich Teuffel's work in his thesis for his industrial design degree, but that they had never met despite coming from the same region in Germany. So I thought it might be interesting to bring the creator of Verso guitars and Teuffel together and capture their first conversation on camera in a 3-way industrial design conversation between myself and them. Thankfully, they both agreed. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Uli and Robin. I hope that you do as much as I did. Yeah, I'm very curious, honestly, to see the two of you as industrial designers just speak with each other about your instruments and your approach. And so this is me gently sort of passing the ball over into your court. Yeah. And so do you have some questions for each other that you've been wondering,
Well, before we started to film, I just told Uli about my thesis I wrote like 6 years ago, and we should have filmed that maybe. So I told him that he's one of my really I think you're the builder that inspired me the most to get there where I am now. So it's very it's a magic moment.
I can see that.
Yeah, it really is. Like it opened my mind to see that you can go really different routes, like deconstruct things, and that a body isn't really needed. I think that was the first time I really thought about, wow, the birdfish does not really have a physical body of it's just for the integrity of the neck stability and stuff. So I think that was the first time I thought about that, and that really inspired me to take a new way. And of course, I went my own route, but I'm very thankful for that. So, yeah.
So what I saw in your guitar is, or what I felt is that you might have been, when you were starting with this guitar, you might have not had the burden of a personal history with guitars.
Yeah, totally.
Which happened to me. I mean, I was not an educated luthier before I started with my Birdfish, but as many other luthiers, I just started to build guitars as a hobby, and it turned to become a profession. But I was always burdened by the market
totally.
Of what people accept in offering guitars to them, and this invisibly started to guide you or to fence you.
Yeah.
So without my my education or my studies of industrial design, I would not have been able to do a step to question a guitar like I did with a Birdfish, which was, so to say, my first designed guitar. And I saw when I saw your guitar first, I immediately took it very, very serious. Because you see that there is in this instrument, you see there is a intentional purity and strength in going a path and being yourself curious how it will end up. And this curiosity is a very strong power in a final product, in every final product, not only guitars. But when you have the burden of being educated as a luthier, you have to decide, you better follow the tradition, which is also a very strong power, a very valuable cultural message. But it's hard to combine both sides.
Yeah, totally. I think that's totally true, because when I started, I never had the intention to become a professional guitar player. It really took me years after my thesis as well.
You can see this in the guitar in a positive way.
And I was just messing around, and like the first guitar that I built was basically a roof batten with frets in it, so it was really rough. And I was so stoked about that guitar because it sounded so nice, and it was like, wow, it's so easy to make. And I think that inspired me a lot to like just joking around, and that was a major part, and still is. Like I'm still enjoying things happening by accident, like we talked about the accidents at first, and many things that became very important were like discoveries that I did not intend.
So how was your encounter with craft, with handicraft, and just going your hands, getting your hands working?
Well, it was
back in history in your biography.
I think the first, my dad told me how to carve stuff, and I liked that a lot. And but then later I built longboards for skateboarding. Like I really went deep with that, like with vacuum pressing and fiberglass constructions and stuff, and like torsional stiffening with foam stuff. So I learned a lot of prototyping skills in that time. And then before I studied industrial design, I took an apprentice at a carpenter for a couple of months. We had to, which I think is good. And that's probably my background in doing stuff by hand. But I tend to just try things out with my hands, and I'm not scared of failure, I guess.
So you have already had an experience in how you can transform an idea into a made object somehow.
And of course, I learned a lot in my studies of industrial design. We had workshops there, and like metal workshops, and even glass blowing. We've been to a glass blowing workshop, and which is very interesting to just look in different fields, like very inspiring.
So, and how did it come that you ended up with an electric guitar as your thesis? Because you might have had also other ideas for the thesis.
Well, I in that part of my life, I really struggled with what I'm doing with my life afterwards, and especially with product design. I struggle a lot with making things that are probably not necessary for the world. Like I'm very, I don't like buying stuff a lot, and I didn't know what to do, being a product designer, what to design that's good for the world, in short said, which sounds a bit naive, but I was,
it's the quest of your generation.
Probably. And I think it took me almost 2 years to get to the point where I knew what the thesis would be. I really struggled and just worked with photography. I did a lot of photography jobs back then, and I thought about making a wooden stove. I'm glad I did not take that road as a thesis. Like, I don't know why, but it's a cool topic. Yeah, so I think I lost the root of the question now. Yeah.
So why it ended up with a guitar and not with a wood stove or a kitchen environment or digital device?
It was a personal thing as well, because at that time I lost a bit the connection to the guitar. And
so you played guitar before?
I played guitar in bands, in a band, and I loved the band, and I found myself playing a lot of synth and piano at that time, and I think it was related to that I somehow could not identify to most electric guitar players, and maybe that led me to explore things. I think it was like that. Like it was a hard time for me to identify with. I don't know. I came from punk rock, and then I really shifted my interest in music. Like I went into more jazz and more calmer music, maybe songwriter as well, and also hip hop and stuff. And in these fields, the electric guitar is really not. I don't know. It was hard to me to find someone, maybe like an icon to identify with, and
Yeah, the electric guitar is predictable now.
Yeah, totally.
So it's no,
and it's so focused,
no white canvas anymore.
Yeah, and it's so driven to the past, and I always struggled with that. Like, I wanted to make new music all my life, and I never did any covers, and I still can't play covers.
Yeah,
I don't know
course.
how to play different music, like the one that I write, and so.
Yeah, but you, as a guitar player, you're always judged by your guitar. So there is you can't. This is the purity of both instruments. So if you're playing a string quartet, you just can't play a violin or a violoncello. That's so great. You don't have to express yourself by choosing your instrument. Your shape of instrument in the same sort of instrument, and this is a big challenge in guitar playing, because everything was connected with how you express yourself, what is the guitar you choose, and it still sticks to a guitar player even nowadays. So to separate yourself from reenactment.
Yes. I like Robin in my own guitar playing. I was never interested. I still to this day cannot play from beginning to end most other songs. I know licks, here and there, but it was just never interesting to me. The most awkward moment is, when someone brings a guitar to a campfire, knows you're a guitar player and even a singer. I do play and sing songs, but then they want to hear the hits, and like, I don't know them. How can you not know them? You've been playing for 40 years. Yeah, I don't know them. Because you want to create, and this is a freedom to me, which is probably not surprising to people because I love instruments which are so unusual. But it's interesting that you describe it as being great to not have to make that choice with the violin and the cello, while at the same time making instruments which cause people to stand out so much from the crowd.
Yeah, but of course, this is my clear perspective from exactly what I'm doing. Yes. That there is a very, very pure freedom in traditional instruments, in a bow, in a string quartet, that you just play a violin, and it's only nerd talk. Which kind of violin you play. That doesn't matter to the audience, but it matters if you play one of these edgy guitars, like an Explorer or Flying V or whatever, or if you play one of these modern guitars. I mean, let's go back to 70s. Like a Stratocaster, or if you play a real guitar, like a Gibson, which looks like a guitar.
Yeah. And very interestingly, when I see a player that plays one of your guitars, you never know what music he's playing. And that's a quality, I think.
Yeah.
That's a real quality. So it's like a blank sheet. You don't know what to expect.
Yeah, and it's the same with your guitar, and in a very positive way, it's when you it's a really, really thin rope of when a designed guitar is serious and gives you gravity on your own way to develop yourself as a player, or if it's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the problem that I have with designed instruments most oftenly is that there is a strong intention of doing something designerish representative, to designish a guitar and not to design a guitar.
Yeah.
And this is
like
absolutely
styling.
Yeah, in terms of styling. And this is, your guitar is everything but that. And this purity is something that really shines on that guitar.
What do you mean by that? How can you justify that statement? That the guitar is everything but that, when it's so stylish and
Just
so
look
beautiful.
at it. It's obvious. It's simple. It's obvious. No, okay.
That is the most German response you could possibly make. You guys probably don't realize this, but when I think of a German saying something, I think of this phrase in English.
Just look at it.
No, I think of course.
Yeah.
That's what you all say it. As if there was no other conclusion to be had because you've gone down the logical path. But every German says, of course. And we're all like, no, that's not how other people think.
Okay.
So justify it to those who might not understand.
Yeah, what I see in that guitar, and we have to tell the visitors, I have not seen yet the guitar in person, not touched the guitar yet in person, which is not necessary for the thought now.
Right. I have one here.
So this guitar is, so first of all, when you see it the first time, when anybody sees it the first time, he sees that it's a stringed instrument, and he sees it has to do something with design, and his subconsciousness tells him it's design, but it's interior design, it's positive design, it's a calming, a warmth spending background that tells the guitar to you. It's not the background of a fancy, high-tech, modernish wannabe design. It refers to your safe place, so to say, to your home. And because the language, the design language of this guitar directly connects me to interior design, to high-grade interior design. So this is not untypical for design students. I would even say it's very typical. And it always will end up in a product of interior design, which is not the case with your guitar. So that opens you up to see this guitar as a positive object. And then you get, and I'm not talking about, looking narrowly on it as a guitar maker, as a guitar player, because from a standard perspective, from a perspective of a standard guitar player, your guitar is bullshit, of course. And as my guitar is bullshit, as everything but a Les Paul and a Telecaster and a Stratocaster is bullshit.
Yeah.
So this guitar is the second information is that since it comes from interior design, and since he took that solution for design, it's a friendly instrument. It's a very friendly companion for your life, but you don't know yet what to do with it because it's the blank canvas. So you will touch and play it and look how it sounds. So if you are in that field of only a Stratocaster, Telecaster, and Les Paul can be a guitar, it would not sound for you. So that won't be people who are attracted by your guitar. But when you start to play it, you might imagine there could be a metalish sound on it, but it could also be a soundboard, because you see there's a surface on this guitar. And this is very interesting. The surface of because a guitar has in all cases has a kind of surface say, except the birdfish, I mean a complete surface. The Stratocaster, Telecaster, all solid bodies have surfaces, but the surface comes from the sound box in the meantime, from the acoustic guitar. And you see there is something acoustic with on this guitar because it has a surface. Yeah. But it's not, because it's the ergonomics, the surface. So or it's a double use of that surface. So because if it's only a stick, it was already there. The stick is not a new invention. Yeah. And you need something to attach the guitar to the body of the player. But there is a second use of that, because there will be a resonance created in that surface. And interestingly, with the choice of the surface will be metal and will be steel, because I think it's steel. Yeah. Because the pickups I saw attached to it. Yeah. And so it will also have a kind of physical influence into the tone, like a Telecaster pickup with a metal piece on the backside. So something will happen, and when you are into that guitared talks, like how a guitar works, and so you immediately recognize, there are some layers in that open doors to me when I start to play it. Yeah. So for someone who is really curious, this guitar can be a gift. So this is what I see in it.
Yeah. Described it very well, I think.
And with the consequence of interior design, he solved all the troubles, the standard troubles of guitar design. Like you have to design a headstock, you have to, all that thing. Yeah. You have to design a hardware, all that nonsense. Yeah. That is also a burden. So I like the headstock on the non-headstock, the extension of the neck, in a very good solution. And when I saw pictures of the guitar, I saw one picture where, because it was an absolute clear decision, this guitar won't have a side extension as a headstock. The headstock will be the extension in length of the guitar, and it will communicate shape-wise with a ergonomic metal sheet. And this is a very consequent decision. And technically, and you have a technical background, it's a pain in the ass.
Yes.
Because what do you do with the tuners? And what do you do with the string orientation? So people will say to your guitar, because I saw the picture where the strings doesn't follow the vector of the string, like on a Stratocaster, which was a good solution on the Stratocaster and necessary for the vibrato. Yeah. And on your guitar, it doesn't. Yeah. So this guitar doesn't work because the string won't follow. So on the Les Paul, it's the same. No one would question that. Yeah. I mean, you have a neutral force in the middle because strings go to left and right side. Yeah. But with a form connection, like a gap in the nut, you could do the same thing. Yeah. So I liked the idea that you didn't give a shit on that and stick to the purity of the shape. And all these details are things that I see in the guitar, and this is why it makes it so strong and so serious. Nevertheless, what people will judge you on social media or wherever with the shape of that guitar, because for many people it will be bullshit and ridiculous and ugly and all that. I know this since 95. Sure. And never had that before 95 with my more traditional guitars. Yeah. But this guitar is really sustainable, and I mean it in a cultural way. I don't care if it's Generation C sustainable, because in your scale, I don't judge you after that, because you built these guitars, and this should be addressed to the major industries, but not to scales like you are producing. But there is a cultural sustainability in this guitar, and I think if we will meet together in 20 or 30 years, this guitar will be still an icon. Oh. Wow. I bet.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Because of the purity, simply. So you barely missed to do any mistake from the path of purity with this guitar, and this makes it so strong. So I don't, when I will touch the guitar and play it, everything that the guitar does will be fine. So I would not judge it after the tone of a traditional guitar, because there are so many traditional guitars there, and you can even afford them for cheap money, which is good now, thanks to industry. So there is no need, but an opportunity for your guitar. And this was the same experience I had with my birdfish. So the refusal of the majority of visitors at the trade shows, but the deep love of people who recognized themselves in this instrument.
I think you're the first person I met that really, like you really understood exactly the headstock when I thought about it. Like I know people that say it's a great headstock, it looks nice, but you really nailed that down. The description was spot on.
But it works. I mean, if you're a nerd, it doesn't work because a headstock had to be like this or that. But it's like you mentioned before, the benefit is of gaining something is better than the loss of a certain solution. So with another headstock, it would not be an interesting guitar. And I had the same question I had when I designed my birdfish, the headstock question. And the headstock is a very important part of the identity of the guitar, and the technical part as well. But when I started to design my guitar, I was still, due to the burden of having only built headstock guitars and finding my own business card headstock, so to say, in the 80s and early 90s, I still didn't dare to build a headless guitar. But
back then it was really alien-like, right?
And it was really alien-like. There was not this positive movement of, 8-string guitar, fan fingerboard guitar. Thanks to Sheldon Dingwall, the fan fingerboard is a headstock killer, which is good. You always do better no headstock on a fan fingerboard guitar. I mean, there is a niche of instrument that works without headstocks, and which is absolutely serious and absolutely taken serious by the vast majority of those players. They love those instruments, and I do the same. And it makes it easier with a headless guitar. But when I did the birdfish, it was clear that, those Steinbergers, they were ugly to people, and what is it for? And it's a pedal. But it was so clear that I made so many design proposals for myself for the headstock, just not to do a headless guitar. I didn't succeed. So I had to admit that this guitar had to be headless. And this is how I got into the headless world. And the Tesla model also allowed me to work headless because there was also no opportunity for a headstock for me. And with the Niva, it started to become different. And I love headstocks, absolutely. But the headstock is the most difficult part of the guitar, of every guitar.
Your guitar's designs are 50-50, but I'm very sure that the majority of the world who's familiar with your work thinks of you as a headless guitar maker.
Maybe.
Even though you have 4 models, 2 of which have headstocks.
But it was only the consequent decision for the birdfish. So I'm not a headless man. I have a head.
I have customers who come to our events now who've literally walked up to me and say, I play headless guitars. They're making a declaration that I'm not interested in the guitars here that have headstocks. And thankfully, we generally have multiple headless guitars with us so they can experience more in one spot, and it's a real thing, which is what's funny about that is it's kind of well, this is ridiculous because in English we say we flipped it on its head, but it has no head. So we've but it's turning 180 degrees. This idea that the headless guitar is the not the icon, it's the nonconformist sort of version, but it's developed now its own body of work. And with that, there are people who are now making the cult of of headless guitars, just like there's a cult of a Les Paul over a Stratocaster or Telecaster, so on and so forth. And, you know, this conversation happens fairly often for me I was somewhere recently with some people who are very involved in the national music scene. I won't name them, but one of them is working for the Grand Ole Opry, the institution of country music, for decades, and a guitar player. And the other one is very involved with all the musicians. And they maintain that people don't play these guitars because they're not good musical instruments. And I said, no. You have a songbook, it's written, and the songs in those songbooks sound right on these guitars. And every time you judge a new guitar, you pick it up and you play it and say, does it play the songs in the book, the hymnal from the church, you know, of this group of music? And they said, no. In Nashville, we accept all these new ideas, you know, lots of new technology happens here. I said, yeah, but look on the stage. I said, these are icons, and if they're wearing a cowboy hat, they're allowed to play a Telecaster. Gibson has worked very hard and has turned the new country guys into Les Paul guys, but new country is kind of old rock, you know, as far as music is concerned, stylistically. And they really believe that this is not the situation. But for me, every guitar design and movement that has happened, if it is successful on a mass level, then it inspires a new type of music that develops a body of work and develops a songbook. And then we judge all of those guitars by the songbook. The Les Paul was judged by the jazz songbook, and so people didn't accept it, right? It was young people who developed new music on it that said, oh no, this is a good guitar. But the institution of guitar players at the time said this was not a good guitar because it did not sound and play the songs of the established book.
And did not sell thus.
Yeah, exactly. It took new people. And so the thing that I love that you sort of resolved your first sort of description of Robin's instrument is, I don't remember exactly what you said now, but it was something about it being great for the curious. You know, and for me, I'm a curious musician, and I encourage curiosity. When we do a Boutique Guitar Showcase tour, I literally make a small speech when the people have arrived, and I say, be curious. I talk about what I just talked about. I said about the guitars not being accepted, and that each one of them develops a songbook, and said, this is an interactive show. They want you to pick them up. They want you to experience them. Be curious and find out there may be not just new songs, but new forms of music we don't know yet, waiting in that new guitar. You know, and when I play your guitar, because I have experienced Robin's guitar, your guitar does not do the traditional thing. It plays music, don't get me wrong. But if you're trying to describe the sound and response of your guitar by triangulating it between a Les Paul, a 335, a Strat, and a Tele, it's very difficult to triangulate its position within these existing, because it is somehow a little outside of that, which some will be very disappointed in. But for me, I'm super excited about the new music that awaits an instrument like this.
I mean, since it's so flexible in its nature with the moving pickups, it's very refreshing because it can sound sometimes like a Strat or something. Even not 100%, but maybe in the 95 or whatever.
Sure.
And but since it's something so vague, like you don't have a fixed position of anything. Like you can move it even away from the strings, and it does not matter anymore. And that's what I find so cool about it. Yes. Like you cannot tell anybody else how you did that sound in that recording, because even yourself don't probably know that.
There's not even markings.
No markings.
On the back of the Birdfish, there are little markings that give you an indication if you want to understand where those pickups are. You would have to make an etching or something on the body of your guitar to know, or take an accurate photograph to know where those pickups were.
Yeah. I find it so funny because there are forums in the internet where people talk about how this and that recording was made with this and that microphone, at which position in front of which amp.
Yes.
And in the end, it's the music that sounds good and not how it was recorded. Like, it was proven so many times, and we forget it always, like the gear acquisition syndrome.
Yeah,
it's so real.
Yeah, it is. So, but some of those people are looking to reenact a moment.
Yeah.
They're trying to get the sound of Mark Knopfler or of a Jimmy Page or
fun.
Jack White.
Fun to make, yeah.
And others are
which
trying
is
to
good.
find new things.
Absolutely.
I enjoy it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I also listen to existing music. It's not like it's not like we don't listen to music or enjoy the sounds of these guitar players, because they certainly do. And even mixing them. As a matter of fact, I on Instagram the other day, guilty, I saw someone doing the guitar solo from Stairway to Heaven as if Mark Knopfler had played it. And he did a very good job.
Yeah.
He did a great job of making a Mark Knopfler impression of a Jimmy Page guitar solo. And so now we're actually mixing those icons and making a mashup of the styles of the two of them, and in a organic, can I say organic way? He's playing it. You know what I mean when I say that? Yeah. So for years, you have been familiar with the work that came out of the workshop you're currently sitting in.
Yeah. for how many years? Or
no, but I'm saying for you, this is the setup.
For years, yeah.
This is the setup. Wait for it. The question's coming.
Got you.
So for years, you've known about this place and where these instruments, and you can see they're off camera, but there are parts of iconic instruments hanging here for you. Yeah. I presume you have some questions for...
Yeah.
Probably not for me. Let me tell you about this guitar. No, for Uli. And so...
Yeah, I have so many questions that I'm just lost right now. But
Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop is your premier fretted instrument custom case maker, and we invite you to create a musical instrument case unlike any other, one that's unique to you. Every Cedar Creek custom case is hand-built by highly skilled craftspeople using only select woods, Providence Forge hardware, and premium instrument-friendly materials. At Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop, we're dedicated to helping you design the case of your dreams. Find out more at cedarcreekcases.com.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very curious in the beginnings of your, like, you've built regular guitars before you so to say got the leap, or and how was that for you, like the reactions of the reception of it, of the Birdfish, and really this early moment when you weren't so famous as you are now, like starting to make this I call it brand now, but it's not like the language of like How did people receive your guitars back then?
I got the first reactions already when I started to build to work on that project in my farmhouse workshop, when my clients from repair and from custom guitar making came in, and they were confused.
Yeah.
And concerned at the same time what I'm doing there. But since I had this one leg in my design school, and the momentum it gave me, so the physical impulse I had moving on a way and having gravity and momentum, this allowed me still to not to doubt now in that very moment, that time, but to go ahead and still do repairs and building custom guitars, so because I was young and needed the money.
Yeah, sure.
And building guitars that had nothing to do with my design education. And I knew from that personal encounters, I knew that it will be, let's see, because Frankfurt was my first international show or guitar show ever, the Frankfurt Messe. Yeah. And so I would say when I presented the guitar first, maybe it were just to put it into a figure, maybe 10% took it somehow serious. And all the others not. And there were some people who loved it because of the design, most wives.
Yeah.
You know, so they loved it for what it is, because it looks good.
As a piece itself.
As an object. And so this stick with the guitar for 1 year, and then I went to the NAMM show, and believe me or not, America is different. So they loved the go westness of this guitar. So, and there was a different perception on this instrument. So there was this kind of, you know, aura that you have as a German coming from Volkswagen, Audi, Mercedes, Porsche stuff. Not me personally, but every German,
represented
even
by
white sausage Germans are connected with this
German design.
With design and engineering and so. So that helped me in America, and just the braveness to do, like go west. And so my success, or the fact that I didn't disconnect from continuing to build the guitar, because I think in Germany only I couldn't not have survived with this instrument. So I sold guitars to Japan after my first messe, to a distributor. But here it was low. I got some 4 or 5 orders, which are not a big promise to a business plan. And my success started in America, the motherland of the electric guitar. And still, it's refusal and confirmation at the same time. So I'm used to that.
And I bet it was so hard in that time without social media. I cannot imagine that.
There was an advantage. Also due not to social media, because shitstorm was only happening in an analog way and not in a digital way.
That's true. But I think I was feared of a shitstorm on social media for my guitar.
Are you expected that?
Kinda.
Yeah, because you played already guitar.
Yeah, I knew guitars.
You were no rookie as a perceiver.
And I played traditional guitars.
Of course.
Well. But funnily, and I think that would have been also true for you if you would have started on socials, that the traditionalists didn't even bother. And I think it's so far away from what they are interested in that they don't even write, I don't like that headstock or something like that. I mean, of course there are some, but it's very friendly, which I'm happy and grateful for. But still, you have my greatest respect in doing it in the early days, and can't imagine that. Like all the messe stuff, it's hard work, and you have to be present, and
But you also go to trade shows, don't you?
I was at the NAMM show with Jamie, but it's quite a long time ago now, 3 years, 2 years. And I plan to go next year as well.
But
the NAMM was my only show I did. The first and the only.
The only guitar show he's ever done is the NAMM Show Boutique Guitar Showcase.
Good.
So he started as a star. This is not how most people have to be stuck somewhere in the wrong booth beside some metronome manufacturers getting ignored for years. You didn't have this experience.
To be honest, I skipped most German fairs because I expected it to be, like you said, like you're not taken seriously, and I mean it's hard to or bad to say. I don't want to say it's not a good idea to exhibit in like a German fair, but I kind of knew that it's not my like the customers. I experienced that too, that I don't have German customers. So
but there's a German saying, the prophet in its own country has no value to people. So a prophet has to leave his environment and be a prophet.
That's a global saying. It comes from the Bible.
Okay.
I think it's the prophets never welcome in their hometown is how we say it.
So same thing with your guitar. I think Japanese people, they really, I mean, if I would be Japanese, I would fall in love with this guitar and nothing else.
I'm shocked that we don't have one in Osaka.
Well,
What are you doing with that?
I think it's.
I know what's happening. We're taking it with us.
Yeah, why not? I would love to say it's true, and I think they like it, but it's very hard to get there. Like
It's
yeah. And I have Japanese customers, and I also had a Japanese reseller in Tokyo, and the reception was a bit held back. I say I think he sold one guitar in Japan and did 2 others to America. Maybe they were faster. I don't know.
But Robin, this is a general thing.
Yeah,
you have to be there for 5, 6, 7 years, and then it starts to get
so.
traction. This is typical.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it's about trust in Japan.
yeah, and also brand trust. So
yeah.
will it be still available in 5 years? So is it serious?
Yes.
Do you take it serious and continue?
Yeah. And I really thought about making a small Japanese website for that reason. Like I have a friend who's fluent in that, so maybe I will do just to spread out. Yeah. But I love Japan and Japanese designers, and I think that would fit. Yeah.
This globalization of the guitar market, and especially of guitars like the guitars that both of you make, they're always going to be super rare, and they're always going to be people searching for them. And if they find it in Japan and they're living in New York, they'll buy it from Japan. And I've had guitar makers upset that, hey, I sent that guitar to Europe with you. I didn't need you to sell it to Connecticut, in the USA. And look at it, hey, I can't control that. It's a global marketplace now. It's if the American buys it first, they take whoever gives them the money first, the retailer, right? And it goes all over the place. Remember, early in your career, you had some unexpected things happen with pricing with the retailer side. From what I recall correctly, the Birdfish, when released, came out for $3,700 US dollars in 1995. And if I have the story correct, Buzzy at Lark Street Music, and I don't know if you had any experience with Buzzy. Buzzy is one of the guys who loves the unusual guitars, and Buzzy was getting them and selling them on the used market for more than you were selling them for new, and this was a sort of an awakening. Was it? Did this not happen for you?
It happened, I think, in the beginning of the new century.
Yeah,
it happened for a while that there were not so many online stores. It happened for a while that a used guitar could be even more expensive than the price that I charged for.
Yeah.
So that meant the market evaluated the value of the guitar differently from what I thought it is.
Yes.
So that can happen. Yeah. And that's always a question for a luthier. So what is the value, the real value of my guitar?
Yeah.
Also intending what is the cultural value of the instrument, not only the sum of hours I invested and the balance of material costs and such. Yeah.
Have you had some of this happen? Because your instruments are at a long enough lead time right now where I suspect something could show up on the used market and sell for higher than the new value. Because your prices are, in my opinion, are still very low.
Yeah. I did not expect. I don't know. I don't really know.
You're not paying attention.
I haven't seen many on the used market. They kept them. And I think the value was quite the same. Yeah. Maybe that happens later. Maybe it's too new still.
Yeah, I would pay more for your guitar.
Yeah, thank you.
No, and I think that others would also, and so it wouldn't surprise me to find out. Maybe after we release this video, what you're going to find is the value. People are like, "Oh, I think I could make some money on that."
I think it's about self-consciousness and also, like standing strong to yourself. Making prices is tough, and especially when you start, you're trying to reach a new market and making new experiences, and
What did they? Was this a part of the education in industrial design schools? Did they talk to you about
not at all
the marketing and the selling price? Okay, definitely hard no from you.
No.
Did it happen
At
for
my
you?
school, neither. No.
No.
But I know schools who have some some classes about marketing and accountants even.
Yes. Yeah.
For enabling you to become self-employed.
It would be very useful to learn it. Yeah.
This is one of the roles that I play in our industry at guitar making schools. So I typically teach at 6-7 guitar making schools around the world every year, and they often want me to come in to discuss this part which they are not teaching. They want to talk about valuation, and they want to talk about how to sell and how to let people know, and often I want to help them with a sellable product in the first place, getting to that point and what can you offer in the market. And so it's always surprising to me that people are educated in how to make something, but not what to do with it afterwards. That seems to me like such a hole. But maybe if I were running a university, I would say, we do teach that. You just have to sign up for another course. It's not part of the making course or the design course. We teach accounting and economics and marketing, and they should be encouraging students to take those classes also, I guess.
I guess I wasn't interested back then.
Right.
Which is a problem of students.
Yeah. Or at least the value of partnerships. Yeah. Because as a creative, often the strengths are really obvious. And I know many creatives who spend a lot of time beating themselves up over the things they don't do well, or living and just suffering with it for a long period. In fact, I saw a luthier made a posting a few weeks ago where I saw something along the lines of guitar making is 20% making guitars and 80% crying about your financial situation. And there were a lot of of reactions from guitar makers on this, like, I hear you, brother. Like, you come cry on my shoulder, kind of laughing. I understand your situation, and I just think it just doesn't have to be that way at all.
I think so too.
And it's, to me, then that's the value of partnerships and understanding that, if you're not particularly apt at talking about or establishing value, there are people where that's what they do. They're retailers or distributors or something of the sort, or even a consultant. If you want, hire someone to come in and help you establish the process that you can execute the process on. And so, from my perspective, a lot of the education that we have teaches a lot of the what, but not a lot of the how at this point. This is what you do. But we don't empower people to go out and become entrepreneurs afterwards, because you're both designers, but you're also entrepreneurs, and you have to be business people. And because of your logical approach to your instrument, I think that your brain is wired to be able to conceive your business also. But there are many guitar makers where that part is a little bit harder. And so, do you think that your education in how to think as a designer helps you also orient your business strategies?
Probably yes, because the education that you get as a designer is solving any kinds of problems. So you're used to get in a new field, and then you're getting good at it. So I think that's helping a lot in life in general. And I wouldn't say I'm a businessman now, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it helps you in some fields of marketing. Like, I mean, the way you communicate. When I look at your thesis,
I'm a graphic designer, by the way. First,
and you can see that it's all well done, sober, and so there's a very strong direction of communication, and that helps you at least. So in the beginning it helps you that you can do it by yourself, but if you don't do it by yourself, it helps you also to judge proposals from suppliers. Marketing suppliers, to judge, is it bullshit, or does it appropriate, or does it endorse my personality or my identity? So this, yes, but otherwise I think that there is a kind of contradiction between the person of an the personality of an artist and the personality of an entrepreneur. So as an artist, you are always somehow too concerned with your inner thoughts, to express yourself through your work, I mean,
money is not important, right?
Money is not that much important than immortality. Because the reason why we do that is, if you really think it until to the end, why are we doing that? And not only as designers, but also as luthiers, is, I think at the end, it's the longing for immortality in a transcendent way, not like I'm a famous guitar maker and therefore I'm immortal. Very simply, it's much more simple. It's, there will be somehow cultural leftovers that will withstand the erosion of time. And that gives you a sort of balance in your life. And this has nothing with entrepreneurship. Because if you're an entrepreneur, you are focused on gaining things, expanding things and scaling things.
Why do you say that? Why do you make the assumption that an entrepreneur is interested in scaling things?
Entrepreneur means he works with other people, not only on his own behalf. So me as an artist person in the terms of personality, not quality, but personality, I'm confused and distracted by working together with employees. I had the experience, and it was no good feeling for me. So I was misbalanced when I had to prepare work for my employee. And when you're an entrepreneur, this is your DNA, to acquire work and to engage people working for you.
I think you confuse entrepreneurship with capitalism, because to be an entrepreneur by definition, I think, is defined by the Austrian economist Joseph Schumpeter. And he defined an entrepreneur as not just somebody who's in business. You can be a baker like your father and your grandfather was a baker, and have a business your whole life and not be an entrepreneur.
Okay,
an entrepreneur is someone who creates a new product. They could make the creator of the pretzel would have been an entrepreneur, or to create a new way of ordering, like the sourdough bread we bought yesterday from a little hut at the side of the road that you could even PayPal with. They had a QR code there, and we paid for the bread on the phone and took the bread and continued our walk. That's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you're right. I understand what you mean.
As a result, because both of you have created absolutely new products, and which are new approaches to the instrument, according to Schumpeter, you are both entrepreneurs who are working by yourselves.
You're right. I understand what you mean. So my internal definition of entrepreneur was more the owner of a company. The typical owner of a company has the skill to engage people and machinery and everything and service, to build up something which needs much more than only himself at work.
I think this is more capitalism and more of a growing, although we still work within a capitalist marketplace. But I understand what you're saying, but I just don't want the idea of entrepreneurship defined by that, because I think that in the context of artisans like yourselves, that we should be encouraging people that they can take their business seriously, take entrepreneurship seriously, because some of them are setting up guitar making like they're setting up a bakery. They're not doing anything that is remarkable, and they're in business, but they're going to struggle, because they're not going to sell outside of their local town because their bread's not better than the town next door, right? And so you have to distinguish yourself. And these are the parts. And, I often teach concepts that I learned from famous industrial designers like Raymond Loewy, which talks about two products of equal quality, equal function, and equal price, that they'll choose the better looking one, basically. But you have to first compete on quality, function, and price. But this is a concept I learned by studying a famous industrial designer. And so what I said to you, was that not familiar? Have you not heard Loewy's way of competing in the marketplace through function, quality, and price, and then looks?
I heard of it. But it's a different thing to incorporate it to yourself, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
But hearing it now, it's different than I received it back then, and it's.
Yeah, there are many things in our marketplace, if we're going to stick with guitars, which are competing. The Gibson brand constantly is suing people because they think they're infringing upon them, their copyrights. Because there is a long history of people who are making a product that is just like it, but better than, they would say. So someone like a Collings, would be making what they consider to be refined, sort of improved version of a things that are inspired by some Gibson guitars. And there are companies like Eastman who are making them just like them, but cheaper than, and such. And Blue Ridge does the same sort of thing. And so they're competing on the price. Here in Europe, one of the primary differences that I see about international guitar makers is when I first started coming to Europe and meeting, you, Uli, Juhar Kangas, Jens Ritter, Orana Tausch, these people were making guitars on a consistent quality level that frankly I wasn't seeing amongst the other guitar makers of the world, that there was a refinement in quality that was being paid attention to amongst many of the German guitar makers, and particularly the European ones, where there was a quality of craftsmanship that I wasn't seeing in other places. And this is where you now say, of course. Because that was the German conclusion, right? So they were competing on quality. When you put them compared to, and I won't name other names, but other names that were being talked about at the time, I was a buyer. I had a retail store. And I was looking at them and they said, well, go check out this guitar maker. And I'd look at them and go, they're not the work is not as good as Nick Huber's work was. And it was quality, but also function. He was higher quality, higher function. The price was not competing because he was not competitive with price, because the euro was very high when I first started buying instruments for my retail store. But he could compete on quality and function. And of course looks. He made good looking guitars. But he could have a weakness of price if you felt the quality and the function was, and the looks was enough to buy on. And so when I say those things, both of you are like, yes, Jamie, I know exactly what you just said. We also learned about Raymond Loewy. Is that fair to say? Okay. But somehow it's not strong in your mind. Why don't we talk about this?
I mean, I do understand and feel the same as Uli said. Like, thinking about scaling a business up requires skills maybe, or requires some sort of organization, which I'm an organized person, I would say myself, but I have nothing written down, and I there's no process that I do step by step. So it would be very tough to have different people around in my shop and then to tell them what to do and which step, and I have to bother with different things that my fear is that would keep me back from developing stuff, or I don't know. I'm scared of that, for sure. And I think scaling something up would require maybe a person that helps one along with that. Yeah. That would be the best employee, I guess.
I absolutely can't do what I do without partners. I need partners. The people who work with me, for those who are watching who don't know, almost everyone who works with me is I'm either married to or I created as one of my children. We have some partners, which we have some contracts, a few hours a week and such like that, who are not. But, so this is part of my way of maybe getting over the employee problem is that they're partly people who are very close to me. But I can't do what we do without partners. It's so key. The NAMM show is an incredible partner for me. A lot of people don't realize that the Boutique Guitar Showcase concept was because NAMM asked me to help them find a solution. I created that concept for the NAMM show. And the tours came out of that. But the tours rely on the retailers around the world who have space and who have customers and who have marketing potential, you know, that we can come there, and they, especially during the pandemic, because we did our tours during the pandemic in the places where we still could, and it relied on those partners who knew the local laws, you know, who knew, you know, masks, no masks, space, no space, you know, all of these things, and so in so many ways, partners are so very important for us. And I see a lot of artisans just trying to do everything by themselves, and often suffering. Yeah, I mean suffering. Like they really have a hard time with it. And I wish people were more open to asking for help.
Yeah.
Lean on me when you're not strong.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a good song.
It's a good song. And the whole point is, don't be afraid to ask for help. I'm here to help, you know, and many don't ask for the help.
But how was it? Sorry.
But Jamie, I think what I clearly see is, I know what you mean, but I clearly see that the most desirable guitars that I know or that I see, they come out of an eventual culmination of this kind of incel habit of these artists. So everything, almost everything, except some exceptions that I will tell you later, comes from people who struggle somehow with their own incelness. So I think I'm the biggest fan of Tao guitars, of Serge and John, for many, many years. It's so inspiring, so astonishing for me what they do.
Yes.
And it's not as deep or as brutal as what you do or what I did. So it's something different, but they are far beyond mastership, far above mastership in what they are doing. And when I speak with them, it's exactly what you tell me, what you see as a problem of with some luthiers. When I speak with Claudio Pacelli, it's the same thing. This kind of incel, prima donna, doubtfulness, leading to this far beyond, far above highest result. And then there are some exceptions which I admire for their exceptionness, such as Nick Huber, because he's an entrepreneur. When I'm talking about entrepreneur, I'm not really talking about capitalism and big scales, but he scaled from, look at my size, 15 guitars a year, to a size of 400 or 500 guitars a year,
300,
and making, or 300, and making people happy, being part of that, that human machinery, that human system building those guitars, being proud on being a part of the Huber family. This is something that makes me really happy to see that. And I'm proud of Nick, deeply proud of Nick. I don't envy him because I accept my personality. So I recognize myself in what I am. And found my way how, I mean, my red rope that I have to follow. And Nick is an exception because the cultural value of his guitars is very, very high. And Jens is something of an own galaxy because it's really artful.
Jens Ritter, yes.
Jens Ritter. And he also started at 3,000 Deutschmarks, which was something like $4,000 in the early 90s, and ended up in a huge bandwidth of value or prices of his instruments. And beside that, and some other brands also, there are brands which are very well organized, good brands, which all fulfill what you said, the quality, the cultural meaning, and
quality, function, price,
the function, all that, but are not, at the end, they are not so straight edge like the guitars of Serge and John Tao guitars, for instance. So I dare to say you have to be that kind of autistic incel person to come to that high level.
You think it's a necessary part of the recipe.
Yeah, and this is the seed of immortality.
Are you serious about the business of guitar? Then you need to join us on Patreon. We're building a future where guitar makers are able to live prosperous lives, making instruments that inspire the musical experience, which helps to create a more beautiful world. Where others who are passionate about the guitar can thrive, those who help in the promotion and resale, trade shows, writing of books and articles are supported as a valuable part of the community. A community where we explore with curiosity and encourage those around us in their endeavors. With a community effort, we can accomplish far more than we can individually. So let's be serious about your guitar business and join us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Jamie Gale Music. We are better together. So let's do this together. You know what's funny about you referencing Tao is, one, the very first time I ever heard of Tao was from you here in your place in the loft upstairs. You handed their guitar to me and to Nick Huber, who drove me here.
Oh yeah, I remember, long ago, yeah.
And we both experienced their guitar for the first time through you. So you have been the champion of Tao, in my mind, for as long as I've known about them. But secondly, I went down the Raymond Loewy rabbit hole because of one of their guitars, where they referenced Loewy's streamlined design in their archtop, the fade zone, and that's what
like
sent me down the Raymond Loewy rabbit hole. And I learned these concepts, which I teach as a business concept, from actually experiencing their guitars. And now I teach that around, at colleges and universities. And it's so interesting that we can reference a designer so much in their looks and their personality. The part that attracts me to Loewy, of course, his products and what he did, and all of the logos which just surround us everywhere. Loewy's work still exists everywhere for more than 100 years now. But it's the thinking, and I fell in love with Brancusi as an artist also because of his thinking.
But he's an artist.
Yes, but for me, I'll tell the story shortly. When you get to the point where you need external input, you need inspiration, you feel drained and you just feel like, I need input. and so I went into the city. We were living near Toronto, and I went into the city to the Art Gallery of Ontario, looking for that inspiration, that refueling, the recharging of the batteries. And we were there for hours, and I still felt like, everything sucks. None of this what is this? I wasn't inspired by anything. And I'm sure there's lots of lovely work there, but that day, nothing was connecting. And my children were still young at the time. And on the way out, of course, the gift shop is there. Like, hey, Dad, can we go to the gift shop? I'm like, oh no, this is the final nail in the coffin. The gift shop is going to kill me right now. I cannot survive the gift shop. And we went into the gift shop, being, sacrificing father and husband moment to give to my children, let them see the gift shop. And it was in the gift shop that I saw a book of Brancusi, New York. It was 100 years after the Armory show, which is a very important show, which I talk about often now also, because it redefined the definition of sculpture in American law. And it was flipping through the pages, and yes, I liked his sculptures, but actually, there were these really large full-page washes of quotes. And of course, famously, I won't throw down Brancusi quotes right now, but I live with them. They really affected my life. And it was his quotes. It was his quotes, his thinking that affected me. Because when they can change the way I think about the world, then I live with it beyond standing in front of the sculpture or looking at the painting. Now I live with Brancusi in my daily life as I experience the world, and I live with Raymond Loewy in my daily life as I experience the world. And I mean that is great art. And it's their sculpture and their work, but actually it's the thinking behind it. And I think I'll try and thread this needle here back to what we're doing. I think that it's one of the main things that I love about working with people like yourselves and having the opportunity to share your work is I don't just share your work, I share your thinking. I bring the stuff and I stand there and I talk to people about it. And I've been saying for years, I'm not trying to sell guitars. I'm trying to change the way the world thinks about guitars. And to interact with your work, as you described a moment ago, there's sort of the sort of brutal sort of, you're confronted with your guitar. You're confronted with a Teuffel guitar. You cannot be indifferent about it. Yeah. You know, to actually, I think it was Bjarke Engels, the architect, who said that to go beyond indifferent awakens a response in both extremes. And I've really experienced that with your work. But when people are able to understand the work and not just look at it as an object, when they're able to understand how we arrived at that work, I see their minds open way up. And all of a sudden, they look around the room at the other 49 guitars on tour, because we're usually traveling with 50 guitars. And now every guitar looks different to them. And we've awakened that curiosity. You know, what else am I missing? And that's what I say. I say, everything here is a unique world-class instrument that is contributing to the conversation of the guitar. And so if you look at that guitar, our common friend, Rainer Tausch, who lives a few minutes from here, you know, often his guitar is looked at and people assume it's a Telecaster. It is not. and so if you look at one of these guitars and you think, oh, I know what that is, you're probably missing something. So be curious. Pick them up and be curious. And that curiosity is the most amazing thing. And so thank you to both of you for inspiring people, for being curious, for being willing to be laughed at sometimes, which has to happen. Yeah, you know, it's that brutal sort of response sometimes. You may remember the first time I showed your guitars publicly was at a Summer NAMM show. And the first YouTube video it was Premier Guitar Magazine. I'm afraid to say this because now it's going to draw people to the video that I don't want people to know about, but I'm going to throw myself into the fire now. It was at the end of the show, and they said, Jamie, demo this guitar. And the guy had already come and taken our good amplifier, and I had never actually really interacted with a Tesla with the noise buttons, and this is what they wanted me to do. And I felt like I did not do a good job. No one else was there to play anymore. It was just me. I had to play it. And then the reactions on YouTube were literally 50% like, 50% dislike. I've never seen such a polarizing response before in my life. And I was already quite an experienced person at this point in time. And I had already been working, you know, with Ritter and Uber and others, and I had worked with people who had the chance to be polarizing, but never as strong as this. And I contacted Sean Hammond, the editor at the time, and said, Sean, pull the video. This is a new client. He's going to hate me. You know, I'm doing such a bad job on day one.
I'm going to hate you.
That's what I thought. Yes, I said, pull the video, Sean.
Nonsense. Because I was used to that.
I know you were.
All of my building life.
But I wasn't used to it yet.
50 is a good result. I had better worse rates.
So we got this response, and Sean said, Jamie, I know how you're feeling. I know the trolls of YouTube had descended upon us. He says, but I encourage you to leave it up. I think it's going to do more good than bad. And I agreed. A few months later, I was sitting in a guitar shop in Texas waiting for the owner to finish with the customer, and I opened up the Premier Guitar Magazine. First page, editorial. There's a picture of me that I didn't know was there with a title above it that says, let your freak flag fly. And Sean talked about this experience, you know, and it was because of Yeah, it was because of you and your guitars, and you get this, where did that guitar from? Was it made at IKEA, or all sorts of crazy, and then the other people are like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Yeah, it's so extreme. Yeah.
This is also a reaction that I notice. This maximum polarization, like it's the most beautiful guitar, and the other person says the most ugly guitar, and always the climax, always.
Yeah. Nobody's indifferent towards your work or your work.
So it shows that it still works.
It still works. Yeah, and in the end, there are many people who have your instruments and love them. Many people who wish they could. I have people all the time dreaming of your guitars. So they can't afford them, but they dream. I've also had people tell me, I dreamt about this guitar for 20 years, and the wife beside him said, you can buy this guitar. I says, really? He said, yeah. Because she said, that's a beautiful guitar. And he waited 20 years for it.
That's great.
Yeah. Are you experiencing also some of this, or is it mostly just positive for you at this point?
No, it's very controversial as well. And I'm also thinking like, what's super interesting for me is I was always looking at ugly things, not in a way that I judge it, but that I try to understand what people thought making it. Like when there are so many ugly things in the world, you would complain all the time. So it's much more. You get much more out of it when you just be curious and like think what was his intention or her intention with that. And it's somehow always a bit saddening to see that people are so this and that, and not like it's cool, but it's ugly, but it's cool. And it's very important, I think, for not only in design but everything. Yeah, like art, especially art. Like what you said, you were not so much interested in the art piece itself, but in the thought behind it, and that's where we can actually learn. And yeah. So of course the reactions are this and that, but
the thing is, the understanding. The thinking of Brancusi has caused me to love his artwork even more. It's not that I didn't like his work. I did, but it wasn't. I mean, I picked up the book in the first place, and I picked it up because there's a bronze sculpture of, I think it's Mademoiselle Pogany on the front cover. I thought that's interesting, and I picked up the book in a large store of books, right? But in the end, the thing that drew me really deep was the thinking behind it. And I mean, that's got to be the core of this, the quality and the purity that you talked about with Robin's design. It comes from that deep dive of thought.
Yeah.
It comes from really exploring deep to arrive at something like what you've done, and to arrive at the work that you've done. It's clear and remarkable thinking.
Funnily, it took me also a bit to like my guitars. I did not find them always like, I liked them, of course, always, but when I thought about playing it live the first time, I was like, shit. I
like
have
your guitar, like
my guitar. Shit, I'm carrying out a message when I play that, and I'm not so used to like being present and like. Of course, you are when you play on stage, but I wouldn't choose that guitar.
But you don't have to be the person to represent your guitar. It's a coincidence if it happens. I did, but it's not likely.
But I did, and it felt really good and normal. So after that, I was much more relaxed and also a lesson.
You perform with your guitars?
Yeah,
you do.
I do.
Well, it worked for Brian May and Eddie Van Halen. So.
And it felt super normal. Like it was really just a guitar, and it felt great in that moment. Like,
excellent.
So, my last question to you is: what is your plan for? Not your next step, but what is your vision? Because I assume you will go ahead and you will stay with us in the guitar family. I hope so.
I hope so too.
So how do you see yourself in 20 years? What are you building up, or what is, what will be the things around you?
I thought about it as well, like a couple of times. It's very, I wish I had the right answer now. I don't plan to scale up things. I think I'm a bit like you. Like, I enjoy working on that, and maybe 1 or 2 employees at max, but not much. And I really have to experience if that works out for me. And I think I will always try to catch that fun little moment that excites me in the next designs. And for the next design, I think that happened, at least for me. You know it, but I don't want to talk about it in camera, but I can. It will be hopefully later this year, coming something new for me. But the playfulness, and I think if I lose that playfulness and the interest in something new, I would quit. I'm pretty sure about that. I would never like build regular guitars. I'm not interested in that. And
do you think people expect now a new model from you, or is it your inner?
It was my
pull?
My own pull, I think.
Okay.
But I think it also helps to, at some points in time, I think it's important to make something new, just to be around. And
because I think, I mean, the biggest difficulty for you is now the next guitar, I think, and you should be really, really cautious what you're doing, and because your guitar has such a iconic strength that you might get into a trap or in danger to do a bad second album.
That's
like a band.
Big challenge,
And to look into the future, I think the guitar can carry you for many years more now. So there is no marketing need or no business demand for a new model. If it's a good guitar, then it has to come out. But judge yourself as strong and as straight edge as you did with your first guitar. That's very important.
It takes me huge amounts of time to get to a point where I'm happy with things. As we were talking about earlier, I developed the guitar in 2017, and I found sketches from 2016. And the first that I sold was 2020, in the end of 2020. So it takes me years, and it's also true for the next one that I'm working on. It's also years from. I had some ideas that I want to. But I'm aware of these dangers. I hope I can manage to make a good second album. We'll see.
We all know. I mean, yesterday we talked about Leo Fender, and there was a curve going up from the Telecaster to the Stratocaster, and then it declined. So everything behind the Stratocaster was just only bad albums.
There's extensions of the Stratocaster in
extensions,
the
but no
jazz
need.
bass.
I'm not talking about the basses. Of course, jazz bass, very important.
But this is an extension of the Stratocaster.
But after that,
it's a lengthening of the Stratocaster.
So, and the bass is even more important than the guitar because it's an invention. The guitar is, as such, is not an invention. The electric bass, as such, is an invention. Never existed. But the guitars later, like the Jazzmaster and all that, it's
it's a different shape.
And the G&L and everything.
True, but don't forget the Stingray, because the Music Man Stingray is a Leo Fender thing, which is the third most famous bass in the world behind his Precision.
The Stingray is an excellent bass, of course, but it's only a precision bass. It's not. Or I would say, in other words, he did worse things than the Stingray.
Sure.
More ugly things than the Stingray. So it's not the worst after work that he made. And I say this in the clear thinking that he's my biggest idol. But I'm sorry for some of his business products. after the Stratocaster.
Yeah.
I really feel bad for that.
Yeah.
He could be the purest purity if he wouldn't have done that.
But I guess you don't lose much if you,
Don't risk much.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of that there. And the fact that his work was so revolutionary that all of the music that we associate with those guitars did not exist.
Yeah, without him.
And reportedly, he didn't even like a lot of the music that was
course.
being made with his instruments. That was not his interest. You know, we talk about, he's the most successful guitar designer in history, having made that many models that actually sell, 5 of them at least that are, and actually the offset guitar is super famous now. There's a whole category of guitars coming from these. And I mean, this comes from the sort of rejection period of the
Exactly.
grunge
If you see
period,
it
right?
in the time frame where it was created, it was successless, like the Les Paul.
Yes, it was, and it took the grunge era to reject the pointy modern guitars and the headless guitars, but not want to play their grandparents' guitars.
It was the kind
either.
of punk expression.
It was their the
of them.
rejected guitars were expressions of their rejected music and personalities, and so they play these dysfunctional guitars to emphasize their dysfunctionality.
But that means that it could have been any other almost ugly guitar at the same time.
Yeah, maybe.
So it ended up that it was a Jazzmaster, the Mustang, okay.
that's true.
But that's no heritage. It was, it was the perception that it somehow punked.
Yes. We also need to throw out to Leo Fender the fact that he's created so many amplifier designs that everything is judged by also, being played through. These instruments. Matter of fact, even in the first boutique guitar showcase, I did not use boutique amplifiers. I actually used Blackface Deluxes because I thought that what I want people to understand is the difference in the guitar, not wonder if it's the amplifier at this point. So he's made many benchmarks in these also. And so there is great work there. But I absolutely agree with what you're saying about being very mindful of those next ones. There's and I think I've already shared this with you. The best thing I learned from interacting with Sweetwater Music in the USA was they told me that their employees go through like a 3-month training course. If they don't pass this very rigorous training course, if they do not arrive at the point where Sweetwater feels like they will add to their reputation instead of taking away from their reputation, they're not allowed to speak with customers. And so I think it's very prudent in a business also and a product offering to look at it that way and say, is this going to somehow improve what my current perception, or is it going to take away from it? And until it can improve, we don't do it. So that's a very good second version, but it has to add to the first level. And you've got a high watermark on your first level. You've got a good, successful first album, and so I agree with that. I certainly don't want to be to scare you by any means, and I know you're already conscious of it, but I want you to be curious, and I think you should be, because otherwise it will take the energy from you, and you'll be like me wandering through the art gallery, wondering where the inspiration of the world is.
I think so too. I don't want to be feared about that. I just do it, and when I think it's at the point that I like, there are probably others that like them. And if it doesn't work, it's okay.
Good. Good intention.
So is there a question that had I been a better host or interviewer that I should have asked that I didn't ask in this moment? Something you want to say or talk about before we resolve this part of what we're doing?
Probably we could talk for hours, but I guess at this moment.
But you've got some surfing to do.
I do. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we will have more opportunity to talk to each other, because it's the first encounter of the two of us. So I've never met Robin, and I'm glad that
me too.
finally ended up meeting you. So we will stay in contact for sure.
We're so close by. My parents live.
So you will have to visit your parents more frequently. Because they are close to me.
Well, great, guys. So, thank you for making inspiring guitars. Thank you for being on our podcast, Life with Strings Attached. the whole purpose of this is that I have met people and had experiences that I can't see any other reason why I would have had that experience, and my interaction with industrial designers, as I has come through guitar and has led me to other places, like the Venice Biennale and such, to talk about industrial design and working with other industrial designers around the world that are not guitar related things. But it came through my work with guitar, those strings. And so, I feel like I am absolutely better for knowing you guys and for how generous you both have been with your time with me. And thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for these inspiring questions.
Yeah. And this opportunity is great.
All right. Thank you for watching and listening. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts. And a special thanks to those who support us on Patreon. It's your support that enables us to do this work.